We're live.
Well, hello, welcome. Happy Read for the Record Day to all of you joining us for this first ever Jumpstarts Read for the Record Google Plus Hangout on air. We're so excited. We have students from across the country joining us today. And we have a very special treat because we have with us today the author of Otis, the book we're reading today, Loren Long. And in just a moment, he will begin to read Otis to all of you students across the country. Now start over.
Okay, so you couldn't hear me that whole time I was talking?
No, we tried to tell you.
Okay. By the way, this is a lot of fun, so here we go. Let me just briefly comment on what I said. You guys know Otis is a tractor, right? Yeah. What does Otis say? Putt, puff. Excellent. So repeat after me. Putt. Okay, so putt, puff, puttity, chuff. Very good. Okay, so just a little backstory. When I was trying to decide what my tractor would sound like, I used to love this movie when I was a kid called Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So that inspired me to come up with putt, puff, puttity, chuff. So every time I read putt, puff, puttity, chuff in my reading today, I'm going to pause and let you guys repeat putt, puff, puttity, chuff. So let's get our reading started, because I want to draw a picture too. Otis. Here we go. Now when I'm making the art for my stories, I like to think of them as little movies. This book is like a little movie. Alright? So I'm thinking about mood and emotion as I read this and as I draw Otis the tractor. Here we go. There was once a friendly little tractor. His name was Otis. And every day, Otis and his farmer worked together, taking care of the farm they called home. Otis liked to work. But after working hard all day, Otis loved to unwind and play. He would ride the rolling hills. He would skirt Mud Pond down by the corn. He would leapfrog bales of hay, and he would explode through the haystacks. On occasion, he would chase a rabbit or play Ring Around the Rosie with the ducks to the steady sound of his engine. Putt, puff, puttity, chuff. Okay. Couldn't tell if they were doing. And sometimes at the end of the day, he would just sit under the apple tree and watch the farm below. Every night, tired but happy, Otis would putt puff into the little stall in the barn that was all his. One night when Otis was fast asleep, the farmer brought a beautiful baby calf into the barn. The calf bawled and bawled for her mother, but when she heard the sleepy sound of a soft putt, puff, puttity, chuff come from the stall next to her, the scared little calf stopped bawling and drifted off to sleep. From that day on, the little calf followed the little tractor Otis everywhere he went. Putt, puff, puttity, chuff. She was right behind him, leapfrogging bales of hay. She followed him over the rolling hills down by Mud Pond. And the little calf made their games of Ring Around the Rosie all the better. Sometimes, at the end of the day, the two friends would just sit together under the apple tree and watch the farm below. Otis loved the little calf, and the little calf loved Otis. I'll pause for just a second. This picture right here is a picture that I did as a sort of homage and tribute to one of my favorite books when I was little, The Story of Ferdinand. So I have the calf and the bull sitting under the apple tree. Ferdinand sat under a cork tree. Back to the story. Then one day, the farmer surprised everyone with a brand new yellow tractor. "Time to move out, Otis," the farmer said. He took Otis out of the stall in the barn that was all his and parked him back behind the barn. Then he backed the big yellow tractor, into the stall next to the little calf. But the little calf didn't like the big yellow tractor. He had a deep rumbling snore that shook the stall when he slept. There was no one to purr the little calf gently to sleep, no one to spend her days with. And Otis could not even see his farm as the weeds began to cover his tires. His friend often sat with him, but she couldn't get him to play like the old days. It was early summer when the farmer discovered a poster. Who has the prettiest calf in the land? Judges will decide at the county fair and award a fancy blue ribbon to the winner. The farmer knew the answer. He would show the little calf. But on the morning of the fair, the little calf was nowhere to be found. She had wandered down to Mud Pond by the cornfield to cool off. When she headed into the muddy water, her feet sank. With every step, she sank deeper and deeper and deeper. The little calf was stuck in Mud Pond. "Get the hands!" the farmer shouted when he saw her. All the farmhands came running with their ropes, but the more they tugged, the more stuck the calf got. "Get the big yellow tractor!" the farmer shouted. "He can save her!" But the big yellow tractor just scared the little calf. She sank in deeper and deeper and deeper. At this time, nearby farmers began to gather. "Then call Fire Chief Douglas!" the farmer shouted. "They can save our little calf!" But the sight of the big red fire truck just startled the little calf in even deeper. The farmer was fit to be tied. If the farmhands and the big tractor and even Fire Chief Douglas and his red fire truck can't save our little calf, who could? Suddenly, the little calf's ears perked up. Over the hum of the growing crowd, there came a faint sound in the distance. A soft rhythmic purr. Put, puff, puttity, chuff. The crowd turned and looked. Then the sound became louder. Put, puff, puttity, chuff. Good. And all at once, Otis puffed from around the barn. He headed straight down toward Mud Pond. Otis puffed down the rolling hill and pulled right up to the muddy water's edge. The calf heard her friend's puttering purr and bawled. It was something like a hello. Then, to the sound of his gentle chuff and the amazement of all the people in the crowd, Otis slowly began to circle the pond. He circled and he circled, and the little calf turned and turned, never taking her eyes off of her friend. With each ring Otis made around Mud Pond, the muddy grip loosened until the calf was able to stumble out of the pond on her own. The two friends had found each other again. Otis led the calf right down the dusty road toward the village. Everyone threw flowers as they went, following them into town. It looked like a happy parade. No one needed a fancy blue ribbon to tell them that the calf was a special calf. Otis was a special tractor, and the two of them were special friends. From that day on, the farmer discovered that with Otis's puttering purr beside the chicken coop, his chickens laid more eggs. At milking time, with Otis's gentle chuff nearby, his cows produced more milk. On occasion, Otis even got to join the farmer and the big yellow tractor out in the fields. But often, at the end of the day, Otis would just sit with his friend under the apple tree and watch the farm below. The end. They're all clapping.
Yay. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
So now we're going to take some questions.
Okay. And I can go along doing it. Okay, so do you want to... Okay.
So we're going to take our first question from the first class, and that would be at Liberty Park Elementary School in Palm Beach County, Florida.
Awesome.
Hi, everybody. This is Christopher, and Christopher is a first grader in Mrs. Montalwango's class. This is his teacher, Mrs. Montalwango, and this is Christopher. And Christopher, we've been studying characters and fiction and nonfiction at Liberty Park. So Christopher has a really great question that he came up with on his own. Go ahead, Christopher.
How did you come up with the characters in your book Otis?
Okay, the question was, how did you think of the characters in Otis?
Okay, Christopher, first of all, it's great to meet you, buddy. It's great to see you. Thanks for such a smart question. Okay, so let me tell you something about Otis the Tractor, Christopher, that I'm going to share with the world or with your guys that a lot of people don't know. When my wife, Tracy, who happens to be the mother of my two boys, coincidentally, she used to tell stories like we all do, right? It's human nature to tell stories. Well, they told a story about a little tractor and the farmer's son. And their story was called Little Green Samuel. Well, Little Green Samuel was a tractor. Now, Christopher, how old are you? 6? Okay, so Christopher, I have 2 teenage sons right now. They're 17 and 15. Yikes, I can't believe they're that old. But when they were your age, Christopher, they made up this story about a tractor. It was a very disorganized story. There were lots of farm animals, and that is where the premise or the original idea for Otis the Tractor came from. But Little Green Samuel was a different tractor, and there was no little calf in the story. There was a friendship between Little Green Samuel and the farmer's son. So all these years later, when I began to write stories of my own, I made up a new name for their tractor, Little Green Samuel, and I called him Otis. There was a TV show I used to like called The Andy Griffith Show, and there was a lovable character on the Andy Griffith Show named Otis. He was kind of like the town friend, and everybody loved Otis, and I thought it would be a great name for my tractor. So that's really the start of how the story started. And then I got to the heart of the story by making the friendship between the tractor and the little calf, not the tractor and the farmer's son. I took the farmer's son out of my story, and I thought I had something. Great question, Christopher.
So, Loren, Loren was maybe going to do some drawing for us too. Thank you so much. And if we could maybe also queue up Van Meter Community School so they can get ready to ask their question.
Awesome. That's great. Great. Put your little question down. Do you want our question now?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Hi, Mrs. Miller.
Hi, Mr. Long. Thanks for reading to us today.
Oh, it's awesome.
And I have a special guest with me. We have the 3rd graders here. You guys, everybody say hi.
Hey.
And this is my son, Hagen. So he's going to ask the question.
Hagen. Good to meet you, Hagen.
Say hi.
Hi.
Okay.
How old's Hagen?
8.
8, yes. All right, buddy, what's your question?
What other books have you written, and do you have a favorite?
What other books have I written, and do I have a favorite? You know, Hagen, the answer to that question for me is always the book I'm working on now. The other books that I've written, I wrote a story called Drummer Boy, and I've written several other Otis stories, like Otis and the Tornado, and Otis and the Puppy, and an Otis Christmas story, which comes out later in October. And right now, Hagen, I'm working on a story called Otis and the Scarecrow. So I'm looking forward to that. That will publish a year from now. I've also written some stories that haven't been published yet, that I haven't done pictures for. I've got one about a duck, because I love drawing ducks. I've got one about a tree, because I love trees. And those are stories that might get published later. I've also illustrated a lot of other people's work. Like I illustrated a book that President Barack Obama wrote called A V.I. Sing. And I've illustrated a lot of other stories. One from Walt Whitman, a famous poet. So I'm very lucky and fortunate to get to make pictures for a living. Because I used to love drawing when I was your age, Hagen.
One of my favorite is the one that you drew, the illustrations for Madonna's book about baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Miller, hey, Mrs. Miller, believe it or not, that book published in 2003, 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great book.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really enjoy making the pictures. So I've been very fortunate to be able to be an illustrator. There's one other thing you guys all need to know, and that is when I was your age, I never thought I would be a writer because I wasn't particularly great at reading, which is weird to say as an author now, but when I was young, I couldn't sit still very well unless I was drawing. So it was hard for me to learn to read. But now as a grown-up, I love to read. And it's a privilege and honor for me to actually write now. It's so much fun.
Yeah, you're very lucky. Well, thank you for sharing all of your stories with us.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Thank you, Hagen. I think what I'm going to do while we're kind of setting up the next question is I'm going to do a little drawing while I'm doing that. Is that all right? Would you guys like me to draw? I can't tell. So when I draw, guys, just like I was drawing Snoopy all those years ago, I start with a pencil. Even though I'm Mr. Professional Author, Illustrator now, I still like to start with a pencil because I don't want to commit any one line. I want to be able to be very loose in the beginning. So I'll start with a little shapes. And I know you won't be able to see it until I start with my magic markers, but I like to plan the drawing. By planning the drawing, I can tell what this part of the drawing is going to do in terms of relating to this part of the drawing. And if I get too close, I can't see how this part relates to this part. So I'm just mapping this out. This pencil is my tool, but the drawing starts up here, right? Starts in my head. So then we can take questions, but I'll kind of...
So one question that came in over Twitter was, does the calf have a name?
Yeah, and see, those are other choices. So did they all hear that question?
The question from Twitter was, does the calf have a name?
So the answer to that, and this is another, when you're writing a story, it's a series of asking yourself questions. So my question was, I asked myself that. Do I want to call the calf Jim, Bob, Spot? Or do I want to come up with a name? Or do I want to call the calf simply the little calf? And I decided early on that the little calf would always be the little calf, sort of in a timeless way, that the little puppy would always be the puppy, that the farmer, by the way, is always the farmer. The only people that have names in the Otis stories are Otis the tractor, Fire Chief Douglas, and in the Christmas story we have Doc Baker. And those names are very inspired by my own childhood. We had Little House on the Prairie for Doc Baker. So things like that, you bring those little parts of your own life into your own stories. So yes, no, the little calf does not have a name. Okay, should I keep drawing?
Mm-hmm. Keep drawing.
Okay, so once I've mapped it out pretty good, then I pick up the marker. Now the thing, drawing is a little bit like life. All you got is your effort. You never know if it's going to be great. I've got a drawing I've started. Even though I've drawn Otis 100 times, more than 100, I never know. I can't take for granted. It might not be great. So all I can do is bring my effort to this drawing. And it matters to me that this drawing is good. Because how could you do a Google Hangout and do a bad drawing? Do you want to take another question?
Hi, guys. So now we are going to go to Frederick Law Olmsted for their question, please.
Oh, let's see.
Andrea.
We have their question. Is this them?
Oh, there we go. She unmuted them. Oh. Yeah, she's doing that.
Tell me when they start
Okay.
talking.
Oh. Andrea, can you unmute them? Lindsay, you may need to unmute yourself.
Is that Lindsay there on the right?
This one right here.
Okay, can you hear us?
Okay, now I can.
Oh, awesome. Boys and girls, will you say good afternoon?
Good afternoon. Howdy there.
Okay, we have, this is a group of preschool and kindergarten children, and we have Max here to ask you a question about the book in particular. Go ahead, Max. Look up here. Look.
Why did the farmer stop using Otis?
They're wondering why the farmer decided to stop using Otis and get the big yellow tractor.
Very good question. Max, good question. Nice to meet you, buddy. Here's the deal with the farmer. Just like a lot of things in life, Otis was getting a little old, and Otis was a little small. And the farmer, being a provincial farmer, his farm is his life, but it's also his work. So when the big yellow tractor was available, it's bigger, it's shinier, and it's new. So the farmer decides, I've got to get this big, new, shiny tractor, which is new and shiny, and I've got to get the biggest and the best tractor. So he does. He brings the big yellow tractor in. And in my personal humble opinion, I think it's okay if the farmer wants a big, new, shiny tractor. But the farmer later decides that just because it's big and shiny and new, it doesn't mean that it's always better. And it doesn't mean that you could just take something that's older and smaller and maybe not the big new shiny thing and park it out behind the barn. Because the farmer later determines that Otis still has the same wonderful qualities that the farmer always loved. Otis still has value on the farm. That's a great question, Max.
Big voice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know how number I am. I'm 3.
How old are you, Max? You're 3?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Good to meet you. What a smart young man.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy.
Thank you for reading with us. Boys and girls, can you say thank you?
You're welcome, guys. Thank you so much.
So while Loren is drawing some more, we'll go to our last school, Cowell Elementary. If you guys could get set up for your question for Loren.
way. Scoot over this other way, baby doll. Let me get in the middle. There you go, right there. Stay right there.
I see you guys.
Hello, Mr. Loren.
Hey.
We are Cowan Elementary, and here's a couple of our students from my class, Mrs. Birch's class. And so we have Aiden here who has a great question for you.
All right, Aiden, good to meet you. Good to meet you, Mrs. Birch.
Go for it, Aiden.
The question was, has your feelings been hurt before, like Otis?
Yes. Boy, Aiden, that's a very good question. And I can tell you what, as a guy that's somewhat all grown up, my feelings have been hurt many times in my life. And probably one of the better examples from when I was a kid was I loved to play baseball. And when I was starting out as a little, how old are you? How old are you?
Aiden.
Aiden, how old are you? I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, it looks like they're frozen. So anyway, keep going.
Frozen. Okay. Well, when I was about your age, I started playing baseball, and do you think they can hear me? Okay. And I loved baseball, and I was kind of good. Well, about the time I got into 7th grade, all my friends started growing, and I was kind of little for my age. And I was always one of the better baseball players. At that time, I thought I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. Well, what happened, Eden, was all of a sudden, the coach started choosing all my friends to play instead of me because I was little and I wasn't as good as I used to be. I wasn't as fast. And the next thing you know, the coach took me and put me on the bench and started putting my friends in the game. And that really hurt my feelings, and it really was sad. But what I had to do is I had to realize that as much as I love baseball, maybe that wasn't my strength. So I had to start looking for what I have to offer. And I have to start being the best I can be, even if it means I'm not going to be the greatest baseball player in the world. I could go on. I've got a lot of disappointments. But you got to find yourself even in those disappointing times.
There. Computer's frozen, so you can continue.
Okay. Good question, Aiden. I'm going to keep drawing. Because I'm going to put some color on this picture, too. Okay. You can take another question.
Okay. We just want to remind everyone that after the Google Hangout, you should go to wegivebooks.org and make sure you're counted towards the world record today. We're going to let Loren do a little more drawing.
So the most important thing when you're drawing a character, I like to think, is the eyes. Because the eyes are sort of the window into your soul. It's the window into your mood. We smile with our mouths, right? But we also smile with our eyes because light reflects into your eyes. They're round and they're wet. So what I like to do is put the darkest darks right around this highlight. And then all of a sudden, Otis will start looking back at you guys. All right. Can you tell me if you want to take questions? So then I'm going to take a little pastel crayon. It's just like you would use to draw on your sidewalk. It's not much different than that. They're just little crayon sticks. Chalk. Chalk crayon, though, yeah. So I'm going to color in Otis's dark parts.
So there's another question from Twitter, just in. Will the little calf ever get his own book? Good question.
Wow. Boy, that's a great question. I don't have any plans for that, but that's a wonderful idea. I do know, like I said, that I believe that one of the ducks will eventually inspire a book but it won't be necessarily related to the Otis world? Good question. So what I'm doing is I'm wiping in with a cloth. So I'm softening the dark color, the dark black, and then I can make highlights on Otis's shiny parts with this soft. This is basically like a little rag, a little soft towel. You want better questions?
We can take another question from one of the classrooms if there's still. Oh, I see lots of folks there.
Yeah.
Andrea, do you want to help facilitate that? If you could. Maybe go to.
Sure. Shannon, do you have any questions? Or in Palm Beach, do you guys have more questions? Looks like the other two classrooms are busy. Oh, Palm Beach has their hands up.
Okay, you want to go to Palm Beach?
Sure. You guys here? I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay, we've got a really great question for the girl. Yeah, my lovely. All right. So what's the question?
I just want to say, how does he make up
What's the question?
The question is, do you ever use any of your real family and make them into characters?
Oh, very good. Very good question. What was your name?
Heaven?
Heaven? What a great question, Heaven. I certainly do. For example, I have two sons that are teenagers, Griff and Graham, and when Griff was about in first grade, he posed for the character of Billy Little in Mr. Peabody's Apples, which is one of my very early picture books. And my son Graham, who's now 15, just turning 16, he posed for the little boy in my book Toy Boat. And then I'll let you guys in on a secret. I also have two daughters, but these are two daughters with 4 legs. Two daughters that are my doggies, my dogs. Their names are Ellie and Moon, and they're Weimaraner dogs. And I use Moon a lot for the puppy in Otis and the Puppy. Not so much in looks, but in personality. So yeah, I use my family a lot in my artwork. Good question, Heaven.
So Loren's just going to finish up his drawing. And again, thank you so much for joining us on this, our first Jumpstarts Read for the Record Google Hangout. Thank you to Loren for drawing and reading to us. You guys have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Mrs. Miller. Thanks, all the teachers.
Thanks, Loren. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks for being a part of Read for the Record. Your vote counted today. Every one of you guys. See ya.
And